Screen started here. So hi everybody, thank you for coming. I'm excited to show you how to do scorecards and keep track of how legislators are voting and if they're helping you or hurting you. So basically I just logged into my account. Hopefully you already have a BillTrack50 account. If not, just sign up and you'll have one right away. And you go to the Scorecards tab. That's where this particular magic happens. If you don't have any scorecards made yet, you just say new scorecard, and it's very simple to get started. So you pick what state you want to work on, and you'll see in a minute why it's only one state at a time. You can put in U.S. and pick and do a federal scorecard, so that is a legitimate choice. And then you give it a name, and you choose what bill sheet you want to use. Now, you can start from scratch and just add bills that you want to rate, or you can start with a list of bills that you have accumulated in a bill sheet already. So either way works. Now, if you do it from a bill sheet, I actually want to go back and show you one feature, which you may or may not have set up in your bill sheet already. So we recently added the ability to put your position on a bill sheet. So I'm going into my agriculture bill sheet here, and you see I have a position column, and I've put down that I oppose this bill, and there's a couple others that I've put some opinions about. So double click in your position column and pick your position, and that will let us give you default scores on your bills. So if you have a bill sheet and you already know what all your opinions are, you can fill in your position. We'll go ahead and assign a score to each of the bills as they come into your scorecard. Alternately, you can start from scratch, or you can just rate the bills that came in on your bill sheet. So that is just a way to save a little time. If you've already set up a bill sheet and set up your positions, you get default scores. So let me go back to the scorecards, and I've got a specific green scorecard that I've made as an example. So I've gone through and rated a few bills. So I picked a handful of bills that I thought had implications for the green industry, and I gave them ratings. So -2 is a bill I don't like that much, -3 I don't like even more, 5 I like this bill, 4, etc. So you decide what the scale is going to be. If you use our defaults, we give it a 3 for support and a 5 for strong support, a -3 for oppose, and a -5 for strong oppose. So those are just our defaults, but you can go just 1 and -1, or you can go 1 to 10 or 1 to 100, really whatever works for you, as long as you make good bills a positive number and bad bills a negative number. Does that make sense, guys? All right, so I've also got Michael here. Michael, say hello.
Hello.
Hello. So you're a fan of scorecards?
I'm a big fan of scorecards.
Okay, so what makes a bill good and what makes a bill bad from, say, an association's point of view?
What makes a bill good or bad? It depends on...
How would you decide how to rate a bill?
I decide how to rate a bill based on the impact to my organization or my members. Generally, I have some framework ahead of time that that says, you know, bills like this are something we're going to strongly support or strongly oppose. Bills in this category will be bills that we support or oppose. Bills in this category will be neutral but following. It's generally something that I try to set up beforehand. Bills will always come up that don't meet those criteria, but you can make those decisions on a case-by-case basis with your organization or members.
Sure. Yeah, so you can always add a bill later if one comes up, and that's what this add bill button is. But I agree it makes sense to kind of decide your criteria ahead of time and try to be consistent as you do this, and kind of say this is the kind of thing that's going to be good and how good. So yeah, agreed. All right, so I'm going to dive in here and show you how to actually do that. So after you've added your bills, either by just saying load them up from a bill sheet or by adding them one by one using that add bill button, then you have to click edit so that you can actually put the information in. So we've got this square where you can override your bill name. So if TPT, municipal tax, isn't clear enough, you can actually put in a more clear name so that when people come to see this, they have a better idea what the bill is about. Or if the name is fine, you can leave it alone. Then you give it the rating, like we were saying, use any scale you want, as long as good is positive and bad is negative. You can put in a comment to further explain the score. You can even put in a link to other information to support your score. You can add categories, which I'll get into a little later, but you can set up categories for your bills. And then you see all of the votes at the bottom. And when you're looking at the votes, you can decide, by default, we're going to give you the last vote from each chamber. So the final vote in the House and the final vote in the Senate. Or if there hasn't been a final vote yet, you'll get one of the committee votes. So you can see here what we're using. The one we use to calculate is got this little calculator next to it. But you can override that and say, I don't want to use this particular vote, don't count it, there was shenanigans, and it will drop back and use the next most recent one. So you have pretty good control over what it's doing. You can also override and say, you know what, I want to count this committee vote extra. So you can say include it anyway, and then give it a different score or the same score. So if you want to put extra points on there for a particular vote, you can do that as well. So if you leave it alone, the default behavior makes sense. You get the last vote that each person made, and we score it based on your overall score, but you can actually tweak it. So Michael, when is a time when you might want to override your score for a particular vote?
A lot of times bills will get amended during process. So bills that an organization may support or oppose going in could change throughout the process. And so you might want to include votes, especially on critical amendment issues, where legislators have the opportunity to show support or opposition for your key issues. Just it gives you the ability as an organization to give it just some extra highlight.
Yeah. Okay, so you can change the score after it's been amended. Then if it has a vote after that, you can score it slightly differently if you need to. Yeah, perfect. Also, if like a committee is voting to kill it, then you might want to give it the opposite score, because then it's opposite day. So there's some times when you might want to override the vote. So those are some examples for how that would work. So you can really fine tune it to do exactly what you want it to do. Once you've got that all set up, then we add together all the votes and put them together into a summary. So this is the summary, and this shows how everybody voted against all of those bills. And so these are the people that voted with me, these are the people that voted against me. Sort of importantly, these are the people maybe on the bubble that seem to support my cause, but maybe just didn't understand a couple things about the bills they opposed. I can click on any particular legislator and see what all their votes were and where they agreed and disagreed with me. And I've got some really good examples of that from some customers. So I'm going to switch over to a customer scorecard. So this is the Idaho Freedom Foundation. And this is the scorecard they've set up. And they've done some really nice things. So they've got, you know, the people that are supporting them and opposing them. They've got all of their bills set up. And then they've got this beautiful link they've put in. And you remember I showed you where you could put a link, where they're explaining completely how they came to their score. So they have a consistent set of criteria they apply to every bill to decide if it works with their philosophy or not. So here is, for point by point, why this bill got this score. So this is beautiful, and they've set that up for every bill. So it's very clear for their readers who come and look exactly where the score came from. So I think that's really nice. But then they've got, you know, lots of bills scored. So when I look just here, click on the legislator, I get lots of details about how he voted in each category, and then also how he voted on every bill. And then I can still go and see why it had that score to see if I agree. So lots of deep information. In addition to just the summary, you can actually dive as deep as you want. Now I can go and actually click and read any of these bills. So if you set this up, you can make it private or you can make it public. So clearly the Idaho Freedom Foundation has made this public because I'm just on their website. so that anybody can come and see how they feel about these legislators. So then I can look at the bills and how they rated them. I can also look at the full spreadsheet, if you will, of how everybody voted on every bill, and even export this if I want. I can see which party is helping and hurting, and this Freedom Foundation is a free market think tank, so you can kind of see how people sort themselves out. But that you can hover over and see who's who. And then we break down district by district how everybody voted. So you can see which districts are kind of supporting your cause and not. So you might have a breakdown that is along party lines. You may have a breakdown that's geographic. So especially if you're working on water issues or other issues that have a strong geographic component, you can pull that out when you look at the maps. So those are all of the displays you get just for setting up the rating, and then we do all of the rest of this. So we aggregate all of this information and put this together for you, and we update it every night. Michael, how might an organization use such a scorecard?
Well, a scorecard can be used in a lot of ways. First and foremost, it helps with your advocacy efforts. I don't think legislators dread hearing words more than, hey, my organization is scoring this bill. That means they need to pay a lot of attention on how they vote and how it's going to impact their members, especially if you're an organization where your members get out and vote. It gives you a lot of power and influence over the legislature.
Leverage.
Places where you might want to be careful. You know, I know a lot of 501c3s think that they can't do scorecards, that they can't promote how people vote. Right. I generally tell people, you know, you're dealing with issues and not people. If you're dealing with issues, you're safe. And while a scorecard does highlight individual people, you're highlighting individual office holders on how they're voting on your issue. So it's still connected to your issue, and it's not, you're not stepping into that campaign issue. Once you know, if you use this and start supporting candidates or opposing candidates based on it, then, you know, as a C3 you want to be careful. But 501c3, 501c4 can use scorecards and promote them and feel safe that they're not going to run afoul with the IRS.
Okay, so as long as you're rating your bills and sticking with that, and then you show all of the legislators, then you're letting, you know, your readers come to their own conclusions. Then you're still in the issue space and you're okay.
Correct.
Is that what I'm saying? Perfect. Okay, so that's good. So pretty much everybody can use these to share where they stand on issues, regardless of the kind of nonprofit you are. Beautiful. Okay, so that is what it looks like when it's done after you've set up all these ratings. There's a couple little finesse things. So we looked at how you do looking at an individual set of votes. So that is on that edit link. I can look over and see, you know, all of the votes and decide if any of them should be scored differently. But there's a few more ways you can fine tune this. So once I am, whoops, came out of my scorecard. Once I'm in my scorecard, I have this Manage tab at the end. And the public version doesn't have this, but when you're in your account, you do. So you can basically decide, you know, you can put your own logo on it if you want. You can decide who's going to help you run this thing. So if you have other people who can support you, you can actually add them and let them also edit the scorecard. So you have that choice. And then here's where you set up the categories. So this would be different topics or industries if you're a chamber, or you know, whatever your breakdown is going to be of how you think about issues, how you kind of put them into buckets. So all you do is you type in the words you want. So I'm going to put in renewable energy and then hit enter, and boom, that added a category. So now I have an extra box here. And when I go back to that edit link on the category list, now renewable energy is going to be a choice. A bill can be in as many categories as you want. It might cover more than one issue. But if you sort them through, then we not only, well, we can do a bunch of stuff with it. So the categories are really nice. They help your readers and you figure out who's good in which category. So I'm going to show another example from a customer. So this is the Rhode Island Center for Freedom and Prosperity, and they have done a great job with their categories, which is why I like to show off their bill sheet. So here they've got all of their legislators. This is, again, a free market think tank, and so they're in Rhode Island, and they pretty much disagree with everybody. But if we look at just one category, say education reform, then it recalculates and shows just what people's scores are in that category. So you can see how if I have a topic I'm especially passionate about, then I can look at just that topic. Or if I'm overall agree with this organization, then I can just look at their overall scores. So as the reader, I get to make this information more relevant to me. So you can imagine if you're a chamber, how you might want to divide it by industry so that your members can come and look at their industry in particular. The great thing now is I can click on a legislator, and it's going to show me his score in each and every category, which is great, and then also still all of the individual bills. So if there's something I really care about, then I can see that particular bill. But also, I can just see like his overall score in each category, so I can see how he's doing for the things that I care about. So that's really nice. And again, you just assign the categories. We do all of the math. Michael, do you have any other examples where categories make a lot of sense?
Anytime you're in a broad organization like a chamber or not necessarily broad, but if you cover different issues. So if you're an environmental group, you might want to have issues about water, air quality, soil conservation. If you're an education group, you might want to have some Common Core issues, charter school issues, budget issues.
Yeah, sure, perfect.
The more that you can break down your issues into things that your members care about, or that make it easier for you to talk to legislators, it just makes the scorecard that much more useful to you as an organization.
Yeah, perfect. So talking about informing yourself, that's a really good point. These scorecards are really easy to make, especially if you've set up that position column and just entered what you support and oppose. Then you click and the scorecard's already made for you. And so if you're going to meet with somebody, that's actually a really fast way to just real quick see how they voted on everything, see where they stand versus their colleagues, and get a good picture. And you can just, especially if you've set up the position, but even if not, all you do is go in and give the handful of bills you've got a rating, and then you'll inform yourself where they stand. And once you're done, you can always just delete the scorecard and move on. So they're very easy to make, and so you can definitely use them just to inform yourself. But yeah, if you are going to use them to inform your members, it makes sense to take a little more time and put them into categories so that your members can be that much more engaged. And I have actually seen a lot of engagement from these bill sheets. I am surprised by how much members of these organizations will go ahead and click and review a legislator's record or actually come and read a bill. So Michael, you said before it gives you some leverage, and I think that's actually true. You're not just talking when you say that. It's true that people come and look at these, and it does have impact. And so legislators would be good to be aware that you are rating this, because people do get engaged and will pour through this. So we have found it to be very effective in that way.
Yeah, as you use them, I know organizations that score votes, legislators will start to go to that organization and say, hey, where are you guys on this bill? Just to make sure that they're staying in line with what their constituents are thinking. So it's definitely a very powerful tool.
Yeah, I've heard that too, which is really encouraging. I just love giving a voice to the people. That's why we started BillTrack50. Okay, so the last little kind of advanced feature is the absent or abstain. So if a legislator doesn't show up for a vote, then it's like they voted the way the bill went. So if you have a legislator that's consistently not showing up to support your cause, then you can score them as if they're just one of the crowd. So if you want, you can give partial credit when they don't show up, or even full credit. So this has a little percentage next to it. So I can say give people 50% credit when they don't show up. So that means if I gave a bill a 2 and they didn't show up, then they get just 1 point if it went the way I wanted it to. Or they lose a point if the bill didn't pass and I wanted it to and they didn't show up, then they get -1 point. So you can make this percentage anything you want. So you can give it full credit or half credit or a quarter credit, whatever you want. And I wanted to flip back to Rhode Island. They use that feature, and that's why they have partial scores here sometimes. So that's people who agreed or disagreed, voted the right way or wrong way by simply not showing up. And so you can account for that if you choose to. So by default, we don't include absent votes, but you can come into the Manage tab and make that whatever works for you. And of course, you can try a couple of different numbers and see what the impact is on your scorecard until you're happy that it's actually reflecting what you want it to reflect. And then the final choice is whether or not you want to make it public. So you can make it just available to people in your organization, and you choose one by one who's allowed to see it, or you can make it just for yourself. Or if you decide you want to publish it, you have 2 options. Once you make it public, you can just use this link to put in a newsletter, to tweet, to make a link on your website, whatever you want, and we'll host it. So that's one option you have. Or you can embed it right on your website, which is what I've been showing you with the examples from the example customers. So this is the link you would use if you wanted to embed the scorecard right on your website. So you have those 2 different ways to make it public. So if you make this and you just want to share it in a newsletter real quick, then you don't even have to do anything. You just make it public, save this link, and put that in your newsletter, and then people can come and see. So we like to think that they're pretty and engaging. They're certainly easy to make, and then we do all the maintenance. We update the votes every night so that it's always current as of yesterday. So it's different every time people come back. And then it's deep. You can click and get all the way to reading a bill if you want to. Michael, any major points that you wanted to make? Or Tony, David, any questions that you wanted to ask?
Yeah, just one thing. A lot of people think of scorecards as simply an external piece that you share with your members or stakeholders. Scorecards can also be used internally to show the effectiveness of your advocacy efforts. If you do a lot of PAC and grassroots work, you can take a scorecard and show your management or show your board the effectiveness of what you're doing out in the field.
That's a really good point. Or you can show why you're supporting, so you can show why you're supporting a particular candidate too.
Exactly.
Internally, for if you're talking PAC. Yeah, that's a great point. So for sure there's applications internal besides just informing the public. You can definitely put it on an internal website on your company page and show, here's the candidates we're supporting and here's how they voted when it came to our industry. Yeah, great point. Any questions about how to use it, or other things you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, Karen, Tony here. What can maybe I'm just maybe I'm just correctly assuming, but does export put that out into an Excel file, and what's the functionality of the filter button?
Great questions. Thank you. Since you're sitting here looking at the screen, yes. So when you want to filter down, filter lets you filter on any of these columns. So you can say, you know what, I'm only interested in the House, show me those people. Or in fact, I'm only interested in Republicans in the House, show me those people. So this can help you kind of look at a specific group inside. Or if you have your legislator that you're curious about, you can look for just a specific person. If that's what you want to do. So the filter is a great way to interact with this and even narrow it down to make it more relevant to you. Export does in fact just stick this all out into a spreadsheet. So all of the buttons have export, all of the tabs, sorry, have export buttons, which just lets you dump this out to a spreadsheet so that you can look, so you can take this with you if you need to, or share it with other people. So it just gives you all of that information. So whichever tab you're on. It also respects the filter. So if you have filtered it down to just the Senate, then that's all we export for you. That's most useful probably on this screen where it's just the big old grid of all of the bills and how they voted on all of them. But yeah, you can export any of these things and take them with you or share them if you're just trying to get the actual numbers out and you're not interested in the graphics. So you can also use that to import into another system. So if you have an existing scorecard you want to put this all into and you just want us to do the math for you, great, we're happy to help. So we'll give you the data to do whatever it is you want to do with it.
So on the examples where you actually see the bar graph representations, when you export that, does that export that field out as well?
It gives you the score. It doesn't give it to you as a bar chart.
Great.
So where the exports are definitely just for the numbers,
sure,
and not for the graphics. Yeah.
Great question. You could easily add your own bar chart in though. Okay, good, thanks.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, once it's in Excel, you can do anything you want, right?
Yep.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you for coming. I hope you are inspired to write your legislators and hold them a little bit accountable. We hope you find it useful, and it was great having the opportunity to talk to you today. So have a great day. Bye, everybody.